To discuss this new normal in which we find ourselves, we're joined by Fred Kempe. Fred is a best-selling author and former editor and reporter for the Wall Street Journal. He was the longtime editorial operations chief for the Wall Street Journal Europe. Fred covered the rise of solidarity in Poland and the growing Eastern European resistance to Soviet rule, the coming to power of Mikhail Gorbachev in Russia, and the summit meetings with President Reagan. He covered the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Lebanon in the 1980s, the unification of Germany, and the collapse of the Soviet Union. He's now president and CEO of the Atlantic Council and a CNBC contributor. Fred, thank you so much. This new period in history that we've just entered, help us understand what we and our leaders are facing.
You know, Shepard, I wrote down your one line, one singular event can upend everything. I think we're at an inflection point in history as dramatic, as consequential as the periods of time after World War I and World War II. Let's not forget that after World War I, we got it tragically wrong. The League of Nations failed, the Versailles Treaty failed, the U.S. did not stay engaged in the world, drifted into isolationism. We ended up with millions of dead, fascism, the rise of Hitler, the Holocaust, and then World War II. After World War II, we got it more right than wrong. We did build the international liberal order. We did create NATO. The European Coal and Steel Community became the European Union. The Bretton Woods institutions, global finance. It was an unusual time in American history where we engaged in building international institutions and stayed after the war in Europe, but it was decisive. I think the jury has been out since the end of the Cold War, whether we were going to have a bad outcome as we had after World War I or a better outcome as we had after World War II. And now it comes to a head. And I think the coming days will really show this certainly is about Putin, and he may have become, there may have been a rationality slippage on his part, which historians talk about among authoritarians. He's been in power for 22 years. This certainly is about the courage of the Ukrainians. It is remarkable, the resilience they're showing and the courage that they're showing. But it is so much about us. Can we regain the momentum that we had after World War II and through the Cold War, and again shape a global future together? That is really what's at stake right now. And it's hard in our day-to-day lives to realize this. Many Americans just want to retreat from the world stage. But the fact of the matter is it doesn't always take war. Sometimes it just takes political will and working with allies and partners. But we have to understand that the global future is shaped by somebody, and it will either be shaped by us and our allies. It will be shaped by less benevolent actors like China and Russia, or it will be shaped by chaos.
Fred, today, the Ukrainian President Zelensky passionately told European lawmakers that standing up to Russian troops and missiles and bombardments is the price of freedom. What does Zelensky's stand mean for this new order in Europe?
I think I heard previously on your program, Admiral Stavridis, who I respect deeply, really praising Zelensky as almost rising to a Churchillian moment for his country. I think we've underestimated Zelensky. Calling him a comedian. This is a man of principle. This is a man of action. This is a man of deep convictions. And he is staying in a situation that could well lead to his death. And yet he's standing by his people, and he will go down in Ukrainian history for that. I think the question is, what can we do for him? There is this convoy, 40 miles, 30 miles long, of killers moving toward Ukraine, closing in on Kharkiv, on Kiev, on Odessa. Normally, if you were on the ground as a U.S. Marine, you would call in the Air Force and ordnance, and they would just take out this convoy. Because we don't want to go to war with a nuclear-armed Russia, we're standing back and we're asking the Ukrainians to do it themselves. We're arming them. We're using sanctions that have been unprecedented in the G7 has never frozen the assets of the central bank of a G20 country, the 11th largest country on earth measured by its economy, Russia. This is all new terrain. But can banks stop tanks? And so we're hoping for the best. We're hoping that they'll be resilient. But the range of outcomes goes from Ukraine standing up, Putin backing off, all the way to a Russia-NATO war if we miscalculate. That's the period of time and the uncertainty that you spoke of in your opening segment.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.